Have you ever stood in front of a shelf at the grocery store, just trying to pick a jar of peanut butter? One with honey, one with sea salt, one organic, one crunchy, one creamy, one labeled homestyle, another classic, and some new brand with a smiling squirrel on it. Before you know it, you're just staring, frozen. Not because you don't like peanut butter, but because, suddenly, you're not even sure which one you want anymore, or if you want it at all. Funny, isn't it? We live in a world that promises more options than ever before. More apps, more clothes, more shows to binge, more ways to spend your time, your money, your energy. And yet, more often than not, all those options leave us feeling, well, kind of stuck. Or worse, disappointed. I want you to think back to a time when you had to make a choice that felt important. It could be something big, like picking a job offer, or choosing a school. Or something small, like figuring out what to watch on a Friday night when you're already tired. Did you ever find yourself second-guessing what you picked? Did you wonder what the other option would have felt like? You're not alone. This strange feeling, that more choice should make us happier, but often doesn't, is something almost all of us wrestle with, whether we're 20 or 70. And it doesn't just live in the grocery aisle. Let me tell you a little story. A young woman named Jess once told me about the time she went shopping for jeans. She tried on 12 pairs. 12. And when she finally found one that fit perfectly, I might add, she still left the store feeling a little uneasy. Not because they didn't look good, but because, in the back of her mind, she kept thinking, what if there's a pair that's even better? Sound familiar? There's a quiet anxiety that creeps in when we're faced with too many choices. We start thinking not just about what we want, but about all the things we might be missing. We imagine perfect outcomes, perfect versions of ourselves, if only we had picked differently. And ironically, the more freedom we have to choose, the more responsibility we feel for getting it right. Which is exhausting, because somewhere along the way, we turned every decision, from what to eat to who to date, into a kind of test, like we're being graded on whether we chose wisely enough. But here's the thing most of us forget. Satisfaction doesn't come from finding the perfect option. It comes from how we feel about the option we choose. And that, my friend, is where things get interesting. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt happier with less? Maybe it was a moment when you only had one restaurant to eat at, and the meal was simple but satisfying. Or a time when you only had 3 shirts in your suitcase while traveling, and dressing in the morning felt surprisingly easy, peaceful even. There's something oddly liberating about limits. When we have fewer things to consider, we focus more. We appreciate more. We commit more. That's not to say we should live with nothing, or pretend abundance is bad. But it's worth asking ourselves, do more choices really give us more joy, or just more pressure? I once met a man in his 70s who said the most freeing decision he ever made was getting rid of his TV remote. He laughed when he told me. Now I watch whatever's on, he said, and I enjoy it more. Can you believe that? No scrolling, no comparing, just watching, being present with what is. And it's not just him. I've heard the same from college students who finally picked a major after months of indecision, from young parents who stopped researching every possible stroller model and just bought the one their neighbor had, from retirees who downsized and felt relief, not regret. There's a kind of wisdom that settles in when we stop chasing the best option and start embracing the good enough one. Not because we're settling, but because we're letting go of the illusion that perfect exists. And the funny thing is, once we stop agonizing over the road not taken, we tend to enjoy the one we're on a whole lot more. Let that sit with you for a second. When was the last time you allowed yourself to just be satisfied? Maybe today's the perfect day to try it. There's a quiet kind of happiness that shows up when we stop trying to win at choosing. It's like this. Imagine you're at a buffet, and there's everything you could ever want. 20 different entrees, endless sides, 5 kinds of dessert. Sounds like heaven, right? But then you fill your plate, sit down, and suddenly you're not really enjoying what's in front of you. Why? Because you're thinking about what you didn't put on your plate. What if the roast beef was better than the chicken? What if the key lime pie was more refreshing than the chocolate cake? The irony. The more we have, the harder it is to feel content with any one thing. Now, Contrast that with something simpler. Think of a backyard barbecue. One main dish, maybe two side options. No decision fatigue. Just food, friends, and that warm glow of being present. Nobody standing around wondering if there's something better in another part of the yard. They're just there, enjoying. And this doesn't just apply to food. It happens in relationships, too. Have you ever talked to someone who's on a dating app, scrolling through what feels like an endless lineup of faces? They tell you how hard it is to meet someone real, and yet they're always one swipe away from the next possibility. It's not that people don't want connection. It's that sometimes having too many potential matches makes it harder to truly see one person for who they are, because part of their brain is always thinking, what if someone better is just around the corner? That mindset, what if there's something better, keeps us from diving deep. It keeps us from savoring the messy, beautiful, real things in front of us. And in the long run, it makes us feel lonelier, not freer. So I want to ask you, where in your life are you holding out for the perfect option? Is it keeping you from making a decision? Or worse, keeping you from enjoying a decision you've already made? Now, I know what you might be thinking. Isn't it smart to explore options? To weigh things out? To do your research? Of course it is. But there's a fine line between being thoughtful and being trapped in a loop of never-ending comparisons. And more often than not, that loop is disguised as being careful, when in truth, it's just fear. Fear of missing out. Fear of making a mistake. Fear of regret. But here's a little truth you can carry with you. Regret doesn't come from making a less-than-perfect choice. It comes from never really committing to the choice you made. Let that sink in. There's a kind of peace that shows up when you say, this is what I chose. I'm here. I'm all in. Whether it's your job, your spouse, your city, or even your brand of peanut butter. And sometimes, the only thing standing between you and satisfaction is the voice in your head saying you could have done better. But could you? Or is it just that you've been taught to chase an ideal that doesn't really exist? We live in a world where advertising, social media, and even casual conversations with friends constantly whisper, you could have more. You could have better. You deserve it. And yes, sometimes that's true. We all deserve joy, respect, opportunity. But the shadow side of that message is a sneaky kind of discontent. It trains our brains to always look past what's here, what's now, what's enough. I once heard someone say, gratitude is the antidote to endless choice. I think there's a lot of truth in that, because when we stop for a moment to appreciate what we have, when we really feel it, we stop chasing what we don't. We stop asking, what else? And start saying, wow, this is good. So, maybe the next time you're faced with 10 flavors of something, or 10 different life paths, or 10 people's opinions about what you should do, you take a breath. You listen to that quiet part of yourself that already knows what feels right, and then you go with it. You trust it, because the power of choice isn't about getting it perfect. It's about owning your decision, loving it fully, and freeing yourself from the endless what-ifs. I want you to think about your life right now. Is there something you've already chosen, but you've been hesitant to truly embrace? A decision you've made, but you keep revisiting like a door you're afraid to close? Maybe today is the day to stop peeking through that door and start settling into the room you're already in. You might be surprised by how good it feels when you do. You know, sometimes the magic happens after the decision, not before it. It's easy to think that satisfaction is something we feel immediately after choosing, that if we don't get that instant rush of yes, this is it, then maybe we picked the wrong thing. But satisfaction is often quieter, slower. It grows in the soil of commitment and presence. Think about a garden. You don't plant seeds and expect flowers the next morning. You water them. You wait. You show up even on the days when it looks like nothing's happening. And then, one morning, it blooms. Not because it was the perfect seed, but because you stayed with it. You nurtured it. You believed in it enough to stop digging it up. Life works a lot like that. A young man once told me how he struggled after choosing his college major. He said, I kept wondering if I should have picked something else. Something more impressive, more useful, more creative. I spent my first year comparing myself to everyone else. But then something shifted. He stopped scrolling course catalogs at 2 a.m. He started focusing on the work in front of him. And somewhere in the middle of all that focus, he discovered he actually loved it. I didn't love it right away, he said, but the love showed up after I stopped looking for something better. That stuck with me. It reminded me how often we sabotage our own joy, not by making the wrong choice, but by refusing to give the right one a real chance to grow. And maybe you've seen this in your own life. Maybe it was a job that didn't feel exciting at first, but once you leaned into it, really leaned in, it became deeply fulfilling. Or a relationship that wasn't a movie scene romance, but with time and attention, it grew roots. It became home. We forget sometimes that peace doesn't always arrive with fireworks. It often slips in quietly, the moment we stop keeping one foot out the door. So, let me ask you, what's one area in your life where you could stop looking sideways and start looking deeper? Where you could exchange the search for something better for the slow, steady joy of being here? You don't need to answer right now. Just hold the question. Carry it with you today. Because when we stop exhausting ourselves trying to choose from everything, we gain the energy to fully enjoy something. And this isn't about giving up on ambition or never changing your mind. There are times in life when we should move on, when a choice truly isn't aligned with who we are anymore. But too often, we leave not because something is wrong, but because we don't know how to stay. Staying, committing, investing, being all in, is becoming a lost art. We're trained to optimize everything, to keep our options open, to fear finality. But here's a quiet truth. Sometimes the most freeing thing you can do is close the door and stay inside. Because that's when the real story begins. A woman I met in her 60s told me she used to dread choosing a place to retire. There were too many options. Beaches, mountains, cities, countrysides. And each choice came with a Pinterest board's worth of dreams. But eventually, she picked a modest home near a quiet lake. Not the most exciting choice on her list, but it had good neighbors, a walking path, and just enough space for her garden. And do you know what she said? I stopped imagining 100 lives and finally started living one. That's what it's about, isn't it? Living one life. Not chasing every path, but walking this one. Not sampling every flavor, but savoring this bite. Not swiping through options forever, but showing up fully for this moment. The paradox is this. When you give yourself fewer choices, you often discover more joy, more depth, more clarity, more peace. And no, that's not something an ad will ever sell you. Because there's no money in telling people they already have enough. But the richest life isn't the one with the most options. It's the one you actually live. So, wherever you are right now, whatever decision is in front of you or behind you, know this. You don't need to find the perfect path. You just need to walk the one that feels true. And when doubt creeps in, as it always will, gently remind yourself that it's okay to choose and not look back. It's okay to stop browsing and start building. It's okay to say, this is mine. This is good. Because the real satisfaction, it doesn't come from what you could have chosen. It comes from the way you love what you did. There's a moment in every journey where the noise fades. The rush of decision-making, the tug-of-war between options, the pressure to pick the absolute best, it all quiets down. And in that stillness, we get to ask a different kind of question. Not what's the best, but what's enough for me? It's a powerful shift. One that doesn't come with flashy moments or big announcements. It comes softly, like the first breath after a long swim. Like coming home to yourself after trying so hard to be everywhere else. Maybe we don't need more choices to feel free. Maybe we need more clarity about who we are and what really matters to us. Because if we know that, then any number of choices can feel manageable. We can walk into a store, scroll through a menu, face a crossroad in life, and say, I know what I value. I know what feels right. And that's enough. Some of the happiest people I've ever met weren't the ones with the most choices. They were the ones who stopped chasing, who chose something, and then gave it their heart. A teacher who stuck with one school for 30 years and knew every student's name. A couple who lived in the same neighborhood their whole lives and found beauty in its every season. A man who picked one craft, woodworking, and spent a lifetime becoming excellent at it. They didn't do it all, But they did something with love and depth, and that made their lives rich in a way that no endless buffet of options ever could. Now, I'm not saying you need to settle. I'm saying you get to anchor. You get to choose what matters, and stop being pulled in every direction. You get to live your life like a poem, not a search engine. Less noise, more meaning. So, as you move through your week, maybe even your day, pause when the choices start to pile up. Notice how it feels in your body when you're overwhelmed. And then simplify. Ask yourself, what would I choose if I didn't need it to be perfect, just right for me? And if you've already chosen something, whether it's a relationship, a place, a goal, maybe today's the day to really choose it again, to stop comparing, to stop glancing sideways, and to pour your whole self into it. Because when we choose with presence, we give ourselves the chance to feel peace. Not the short-lived thrill of picking the shiny thing, but the deeper, longer, quieter joy of belonging to our choice. That's the kind of satisfaction that doesn't fade. It doesn't need to be upgraded. It doesn't disappear the moment a new option shows up. It stays. And the truth is, life isn't really about finding the best of everything. It's about finding what's meaningful to you and giving it room to grow. Maybe, just maybe, fewer choices can lead to more freedom. Not the kind of freedom that says, you can have anything, but the kind that whispers, you have what you need. And that whisper, that quiet knowing, that's the beginning of peace. So here's what I'd love for you to do. Just one small thing. The next time you catch yourself spiraling in choice, whether it's a big decision or something as simple as picking dinner, pause. Close your eyes for a moment and ask, what feels good, honest, and simple right now? Then choose that. Trust that. Let that be enough. And if this message resonated with you, if it stirred something inside, then maybe you're not alone in feeling this way. Maybe someone else in your life needs to hear it too. A friend, a parent, a teenager trying to make sense of their future, a senior wondering if they made the right turn somewhere down the road. Feel free to share it. Not because it has all the answers, but because sometimes we just need to know we're not the only ones trying to breathe in a world of too many options. You're not alone. We're all figuring it out, one choice at a time. Thanks for being here, for listening, for choosing to spend these minutes with me. Take care of yourself. And remember, sometimes the smallest commitment leads to the greatest peace. Until next time.